Siyo from the Res.
I'm Kinley.
And I'm Colton.
And this is Cherokee Nation's official podcast. Our guest today is what you might call a fan favorite, not just here in the Cherokee Nation, but everywhere he goes, especially on the Cherokee Nation TikTok, where his storytelling videos always go viral.
Robert Lewis is a Cherokee National Treasure who earned that distinction in 2015 for storytelling and is instantly recognizable by thousands of people as an engaging and interactive storyteller.
If you spent some time at the Cherokee Nation Reservation or at one of our many at-large gatherings, chances are you've seen Robert. You'll know him by his big smile, his powerful voice, and the crowd that always seems to gather when he's telling a story.
He brings traditional stories to life here on the Res and across the globe, celebrating his Cherokee, Navajo, and Apache heritage, sharing an authentically Native perspective with the world. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Robert Lewis. How are you doing today, Robert?
Good, doing good. Teaching children art classes over there at Camp Cherokee.
Oh, nice. That's always fun.
Yeah, because I love art.
Yeah, and Colton, did I ever tell you that Robert was actually my teacher in college?
Mm-hmm.
You have mentioned that. I'm curious to how Kinley did. Was she a star pupil?
She was one of my star pupils. She did really well. She did a representation of the Uktana.
Oh,
her sculptures. Yeah,
the snake.
I know you were being nice, but was I really good?
Yeah.
Was I a really good artist?
You're good. You're a good artist. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Your dad would be proud.
Good.
Yeah, she comes from good stock.
Making my dad proud. Holla, Dad.
Yeah, we were talking as we were going over this. I can remember Robert Lewis, and I think I'm from Pryor. Mm-hmm. It's probably second or third grade, and you came to the now non-existent old gym at Roosevelt Elementary in Pryor and did some storytelling. That was the first time I remember you, and I mean, that was 2002, 2003. So you've been at this a while.
I've been at this a while, yeah. And I've gone to area schools and communities, and some of the spaces I've gone to, the kids would come out there, hey, remember me? And I say, sure, yes, I remember you. And we'd be like maybe 10,000 children, yes, I remember you. But they're always excited to see me. And the teachers sit there and they say, hey, the kids have been talking about the fact that when you come in here, that's all they want to say. They hear stories. They just want to hear the stories. And so that's good. It's at least ways to get a chance to get the culture back into the schools and the communities. For the most part, to listen to all the morals and the values we have.
Do you have a warm-up routine before your performances? Because your voice, your voice is so well known. Anybody who hears it knows it's you.
I don't eat before I get started. Made a mistake one time at doing that, and you might occasionally burp, so you don't want to do that. And so I don't eat. I would have to say no. I really don't have a warm-up routine. I'm sitting there and I'm waiting, and then they tell me you're up, and then you go up there and start talking. When I get out there and I start talking, people out there that are watching, I'm paying attention to who's sitting out there, what they're wearing. Somebody might look like somebody I know who likes a particular story, and I'll tell that story. It might be raining. I might tell a story connected with the rain. I might have seen a turtle or bird or deer the day on the drive over there, and I'll tell a story connected with that. And I'll relate it to the fact that I saw this today, so this is the story I'm going to tell you. Start to go in that direction. Every once in a while, I'll come across somebody who's heard me tell stories and they'll request one of those stories. Say, do you remember that story about the rabbit, the sister, and how's all the wolves dancing around singing? Could you tell that one? I said, sure.
So that's just your natural voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My natural voice is when I'm sitting there and have no storytelling sessions and I'm just being myself. My natural voice sounds like this.
Yeah.
All right.
For those of you who don't know, I know you're a Mays County boy originally.
Mm-hmm. Salina, Oklahoma.
Exactly. Can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and kind of growing up in that magical part of the state?
I grew up right next to Lake Hudson. My mom's Cherokee, my dad's Navajo and Apache. When I was little, I was a very shy child. I was very quiet. I kept to myself. I would hyper-focus on certain things, dinosaurs being one of them when I was a child. As I would sit there and I would look at these dinosaurs and I would sit there and I would draw and read everything I could about them. My mom was a big advocate for reading. And so I would sit there and I'd go to kindergarten class and you had show and tell and everybody would bring either their doll, their truck or something or crayon or something. I always bring a bag of dinosaurs. And the teacher would sit there and says, well, what do you want to tell us about, Robert? And I says, this is Tyrannosaurus Rex and this is Stegosaurus. They did not live in the same periods. They had different periods. They never saw each other, but this one was huge. And Stegosaurus, I would give them detailed things about this. And they would look at me, how old are you? I'd go 3 or 4. But My dad, being Navajo and Apache, was one who would tell me stories when I was growing up. And he told a story about a coyote that put stars up in the night sky. And it was on a trip to Arizona. And we were sitting there, and the stars filled the night sky. And my dad saw me looking at him and decided to tell the story. My dad would do this from time to time. He would sit there, I don't know why I'm telling this. It's just something tells me I need to let you know. And then he would start. And then I start asking my dad questions. And I'm fortunate, and this is for all the parents out there, when that child starts to ask you questions, to stop whatever you're doing. Get off the phone, stop, put down stuff, whatever you're doing. Listen to what that small child is asking the question. And if you take the time to pay attention and listen and start to answer some of those questions, instead of saying, I'll get to you in just a second, I know I'm busy right now. If my dad had done that, I probably wouldn't have asked him any more questions. And then I would have stopped, and then the story would have just gone away. But he was patient enough on the drive to start answering my questions. And then, lo and behold, years down the road, I'm working at the Cherokee Heritage Center, and I tell that story to a group of people. And somebody from the museum named Barbara Gertie saw me and came out and says, I didn't know you were a storyteller. And that started everything.
Oh, wow. Amazing how that started organically.
How do you keep up with all those stories? Because I know you have a lot of stories.
Yeah, they're all inside my head. And like most storytellers we talk to, is that just in the main part of the story is always being conveyed. At the same time, because of the fact that it's inside your head and saying the same thing over and over again, I would change it and move it back and forth. And because of what I do when I pull the children out and involve them with the story, give them little parts to be the bear, wolf, deer, panther, turtle, or rabbit. Sometimes the kids, when they're out there, will go off on a different tangent. And because they go off on a different tangent and they say, we're hunting. He says, yeah, am I hunting a bear? I said, sure, we're hunting a bear and we're going through the woods. And then I'll bring a bear into the story. And because of that, the story gets to be fleshed out even further. There's a story about our first blowgun told to me by Chester. Also, one time he would sit there and he worked in the village, and Chester would sit there and shoot a blowgun, and he was born with half an arm, and never stopped him. He became a teacher. They said he was a wonderful ball player. He would sit there and catch the ball with one hand and put it underneath the arm and throw the ball. But one day he told me a story about a bear and a rabbit, and that's how we got a blowgun. And I've been telling that story for years. That gets in along the line that Kenny was asking about, how do I keep all these stories in my head? They're in there, but when I start, they are allowed to have their life of their own. They're allowed to breathe, and they're allowed to be conveyed. And just like art, they're allowed to express themselves into different directions.
That's really cool. And we've heard you say before that you can learn a lot about a person by the types of stories they tell. What do your stories say about you?
All the stories that I get out there and tell, I'm trying to tell them stories along the lines of the fact that being respectful to each other, taking care of each other, because we're not seeing that as much as we see. There's a lot of things, especially in social media, where they pick at each other and they claw at each other, and you see things that people would never, ever say to somebody standing right in front of them, but for some other reason, because they're on a computer screen, they feel they have the right to say this or that. And these things are hurtful and harmful, and it's nothing you would say to somebody else. So I'm always trying to convey that to these children. Says, is this going to be hurtful to somebody? Is this going to be harmful to somebody? Is this actually going to help someone? And that's part of the thing about Gadugi we're supposed to have. It's for everybody, to include everyone, to bring everybody into us. Because if we help everybody, guess what? Everything starts to get better. And that's what I try to convey to those kids. Making choices and having consequences that come from those choices, good or bad, they're supposed to teach you things. So try to make sure your choices that you make are helpful to the people around you, okay? Your family, your school, your community, people around you, strangers you meet, because that impression they're going to get is going to come from you based upon how you've been raised and based upon how you perceive the world. And if you put forth an angry face towards them, that's what you're going to get back. You show them aspects of being disrespectful to them, guess what? You're going to get that back. And so trying to find this ground of being a human being, and Hastings will talk about this, about being a human being for everyone, is something that we sorely need today.
That's some good advice.
Yeah. A common theme among people who we have on the podcast that I've noticed that are what I would say cultural preservationists is using culture, that Cherokee culture specifically, that's been around for so many years, to deal with the modern world. Is that kind of something that you've seen?
Modern world's out there. is always about, it's almost like it's an alien, it really is, it's an alien concept of how to look at things. Colonialism, coming to the aspects of using the land as a resource, as a natural resource, when traditionally we did not do that. You lived in connection with that land, connection with those plants and animals. Noel Grayson, whom I love desperately, he sits there and he talks about the fact that this connection with the land, with the trees, with the people, with the animals is all out there. And that when you go out there and you go out into those woods and those wilderness and you feel this, almost this communion with nature, that's how we all used to live at one time. And now you got people who sit there and they want to use it as a natural resource. They want to go out there and dig into the earth. They want to go out there and pull all this stuff, and they're actually looking for money. But there's a point where you have to decide, geez, man, we're getting too much of this and using too much of these aspects of an alien way of thinking as opposed to a traditional way of thinking or not? Am I taking too much of these resources? Because a long time ago when they went out there and they gathered medicine, they would go out there and they'd pick the seventh plant. They'd go out there and grab the seventh plant. They'd leave the other ones there for the next generations because they revive and come back into the earth, and then they come back and the next generation comes up. Basket materials, all of that at one time where you go out there and you didn't take everything. And seeing that more and more where people are taking more than they need. And that's an alien concept.
There's a story about that, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Like where the hunters, they were taking...
Yeah, that's the origin of medicine story. The fact that they were going out and they were taking too much. Because at one time when they came into contact, the French and the British out there, they were wanting materials. And what they discovered was the material we had, leather. They'd never seen this before. Because of that, they began to say, well, if you give us more of the deer hides and this and that we could use, we can give you more of these materials, pots that won't break, these stone tools, the guns. And so they began to trade. And this trade aspect of it, which is something that native tribes have always done, just traded, which is why you can find Minnesota pipestone all the way down in Louisiana. But because of that, they began to take more and more of the deer. One of our stories involved the fact that diseases began to show up. This is also after contact. After contact, so many tribes began to disappear due to not having any kind of immunity against the diseases that were coming over from Europe. They said their smallpox showed up amongst the Cherokees, wiped out half of the Cherokee tribe. And the story talks about the fact that all the animals gathered together and they all tried to figure out some way to get rid of the people, get rid of the men. The bears decided, well, maybe we'll make a bows and arrows just like that. And one of the bears even sacrificed themselves to be used for sinew. But they found out when they shot the bow, it wouldn't work because their claws were too long. And they said, well, we got to get rid of our claws. And then the bear said, if we start getting rid of who we are as bears, that makes us not bears anymore. The deer gathered a council, and the deer had a little deer. And the little deer would run up there and says, I will run and I will ask anybody who takes one of our lives if they said a prayer. Because traditionally, we're supposed to say a prayer before you take something. Say a prayer of thankfulness, respectfulness to that nature, plant, animal, whatever it is. You say a prayer. Thank you for offering yourself to me to provide for my family. If they say a prayer, I'll leave them alone. If they don't, the little deer would follow them to wherever they were and give them rheumatism, make them get arthritic. So that was another one. All the smaller animals, the chipmunk and the worm and the grubworm and the frogs, and they all gathered together and they said, the people are stepping on us, squashing us, getting rid of us. So they all came up with these little diseases you could not see. And they make people sick. And everybody was all excited about it, but the plants had heard what was going on. The plants liked the people. The people would come and take care of the plants. So all the plants gathered together and looks at the trees and says, we got to help the people. So each one of them decided we will make medicine for whatever they have to counter. And so stories and language seem to show up, sometimes based upon the modern influences that are going on.
You touched on it a little bit about how you interact with a crowd and, maybe adjust a story based on what you're seeing. But the other side of that is you've recently become pretty TikTok famous. How does the modern age affect storytelling online? How has that change been for you to where everybody can have access to Robert Lewis stories at the drop of the hat?
Yeah. Along the lines of TikTok and social media, I don't have a clue how any of that works. My wife, Shelley, run the website we have. She's extremely knowledgeable about all of that. This is how many people are seeing. This is how many times you're viewed. Shows the extent of it. She even showed me a graph. And shows this is how many people are looking at you or around the world. And I saw where all these countries around the world, not just here in the United States, but around the world are sitting there. These are people who have actually looked who you are. And this is how many people you're getting into contact with. Knowing that, what I'm saying is being heard. I'm trying to be extremely careful about the fact that all these stories relate to something along the lines of how people should behave towards each other. And so I continue to try to convey that, especially with the school kids that I run across. So as to doing the TikTok thing, I have no idea how that works.
How does it feel, though, to be TikTok famous?
Or
famous.
I don't even think about it.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, I keep doing what I'm doing. That's something else that my wife's talked about, the fact that I know you don't like talking about yourself, because she does. She'll talk about what I do. And she's extremely good about promoting, and vice versa. She doesn't talk about herself, but I'll tell about all the things that she's done. And she does an awful lot, helping people, children, and help with hospitals, heart, things of that nature, going out there helping veterans. And so both of us are good about the fact that we both promote one or the other. Mm-hmm. But as to myself, when I'm out there and gathering around and doing these programs, I'm focused primarily on getting the program done, and at the same time focusing and making sure those kids hear these stories and at least ways learn the aspects behind the morals behind those stories.
That's great. We talk a lot about your storytelling, but you're also an accomplished artist. For listeners who might not know that side of you, can you talk about some of the art that you create? When
I go out and I begin to paint or draw, I'll sit there and I'll just arbitrarily just grab whatever's near me. It doesn't matter if it's acrylic or watercolors or colored pencils or markers or pencils or inks. And I'll just have a piece of paper and I'll just either just lay the color down there or I'll move the marks back and forth, and then I'll look at it. And what I'm looking for is some type of imagery to pop up and show me something on there. As I'm sitting there, I'll sit there and I'll draw and begin to paint. And I say, oh, that looks like a wolf. Oh, this looks like a person. Oh, this looks like somebody I know. And so I'll sit there and I'll begin to pull that image out. I've painted mermaids. I've painted roses. I've painted people with wings. I've painted buildings falling apart and becoming something else. I've done birds, eagles, hawks, real affinity for hawks. And because of that, whatever's been in my past starts to show up. Dinosaurs will show up in some of my paintings. I have one that that Noel has with him, and it's called Turok Saves Fay Ray, and there's a King Kong in the background. There's a couple of dinosaurs rolling around, and there's these natives, they're Kiowas, Turok, Son of Stone, running out there, and they're saving Fay Ray, pulling her out. I don't know where that came from, but it just kind of popped up. So when I start there and I get started with the imagery for painting or drawing, I don't really have a plan for what it is. I just let the images start to show up.
Something that you're really involved in is our at-large communities. You're always a highlight at our at-large communities. You know, what's it like being able to travel and tell stories from Cherokee culture?
The aspects of getting around the ground and travel. I did not know when you sit there and begin to tell stories that next thing you know, they put you on a plane and you're going to L.A. or going to Seattle or you're going to Washington, D.C. Did not even cross my mind when I started doing this. I was just doing this to tell stories, just speak to a couple of kids just to calm them down. There's one kid named Jeremy who was running all over the place, and I kept telling stories just to make sure he would calm down and sit down. Getting a chance to go out there and travel around gives me a chance to see part of the country I never knew I would get a chance to see. I was a homebody. Still kind of pretty much a homebody. I was a homebody when I was growing up. Didn't go anywhere. Drew, did my art, stayed at home. Family members and cousins and this and that, and they would hear stories from my aunts and uncles. They said, oh, so-and-so is out there running around. I don't know where my daughter's at. I can't find my son. I didn't come here. And they're sitting there arguing. My mom was opposite. She's like, get out of the house. Go do something. But I would sit there and find a book to read because I loved reading. And I would sit there and get a paper and just start drawing something. And that was what I was focusing on, not anything else. And so now when I'm sat there and I found out I get to travel around and go around to different countries and visit with these people at large communities. And these at-large communities, they're out there, they're hungry for any kind of a cultural aspect that we can present to them. And when we go out there and we present, when we talk to them, they come up and they ask us questions about people we may know, about different aspects of our either stories or basket weaving or culture or bows and arrows or flint knapping, weaving, things of that nature. So, but they're interested in the language, they're interested in the culture, they're interested in aspects of it because they're removed from it, because they're out there in parts of California, they're out there in Florida, parts of Colorado, so they're kind of spread out all over the country. And so it's our chance, and it's not much of a chance we get. We get there, we do their storytelling, we do their sessions, but we're like there for a small, finite amount of time, and then we're gone again, and they may not see us for about another year. Some may not see us for another year. But when they come, they're extremely welcoming for whatever we're bringing to them. And as of right now, I've got a promotion going on where I'm doing cornhusk dolls with a group up in Pennsylvania, because I live up there. And the group that's up there, they're refugees from other parts of the world. And these kids have been removed from where they're at. So we should be used to things. We were removed, they were removed too. So I'm going to show them how to do cornhusk dolls and then bring them some materials. And I got people sending stuff to us. We're going to let them use these materials to kind of a correlation and kind of a fusing of how their culture is there, a representative of their culture, is along with ours, with the cornhusk dolls.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I still have my cornhusk doll that you taught me how to make.
Yeah.
I really like her.
And aside from our at-large meetings and other nation-sponsored events, for our listeners who want to experience some good old Robert Lewis storytelling, where can they go online, or where can they see you in person?
You can look at robertlewisstoryteller.com. There's a website I've got. And they can go out there and you can find things on YouTube. Dennis Six Killer would put on Cherokee words. And on Sunday, he would play them out here. And every once in a while, we'd get together. And I'm trying to work out of time, because now I come down here and just very, very, very quickly, very fast, I come and hit what I'm supposed to do. And then I end up flying back off to somewhere else. Try to go and see Dennis and get a chance to we get together and come into one of the recording studios, and we do a couple of sessions of storytelling so that he can put it online so kids can hear it, and parents can hear it. And I just recently had a session where I got done and I finished, and the man came up there and says, "Do you know that I was going down the road the other day with my son, and we were sitting there, and it was Sunday, and we turned on the radio, and all of a sudden, there's your voice." And I said, "I know this guy." And so it just turned out to be the story about the bear and the blowgun. So my son enjoyed that story.
So we know you're really busy, and we don't want to keep you too much longer. So years from now, when people think about Robert Lewis, what do you hope your legacy will be?
That tries to keep the culture alive. They try to learn the meanings behind these stories, and that the fact that people, even me, are still in the process of learning how to become a better human being. That you always try to learn something. And the minute you think you know everything, you stop learning at all.
Iconic as always. You're one of the guests that I was looking forward to the most. Like I said, you were probably the first person that I saw that was an advocate for Cherokee culture. And it's only grown over the years, and you've obviously become the Robert Lewis of our iconic Cherokee National Treasure, et cetera, et cetera. So we're so glad that we have you for the little bit of time we have, and we're so glad that we were able to get you on the podcast. Thank you for coming out.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's been real,
right.
and it's been good.
Ski.
And you might think I'm going to say it hasn't been real good, but it's been real good talking to you, Robert Lewis.
Thank you, Robert. Siyo from the Res was recorded at the W.W. Keeler Tribal Complex in Tahlequah on the Cherokee Nation Reservation.
This episode was hosted by Kenley Keys and Colton Brandstetter.
Our producer is Brian Dugan.
Our podcast art was designed by Justine Eden.
This episode was edited by Samantha Robinson.
Soundtrack by Chuge Mackey.
If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and leave a review. It'll help more people find us, and please share this episode with your family and friends, especially some of our elders who may not be on social media or listen to podcasts.
And don't forget to follow Cherokee Nation on social media for podcast updates and behind-the-scenes content.
We want to hear from you. Do you know any Cherokee Nation citizens that have an interesting story? Email us at podcast@cherokee.org.
Until next time, stay connected, watch out for each other, and see
Siyo
from the res.